Ray Epps took a plea deal, and he did it very conveniently through Zoom. A lot of other J6 defendants, they got convicted after they were thrown in solitary confinement, thrown in the DC gulags for many months or years. And Ray Epps had none of that going on for him. Now, in fact, he got to just kind of rummage around the country in what I think is a multi-million-dollar RV and just really enjoying the life. We had people like Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and others saying, this guy's a hero, this guy's just incredible, and they couldn't find any fault with him, even though all other J6ers were deemed to be insurrectionists and the end of American democracy. But for some reason, Ray Epps got a very nice pass. But he did take a plea deal, no FBI raids, nothing like that, just hopped on his phone and just, hey, it's Ray Epps here, Judge, how are you? And Judge is like, hey, Ray, good to see you. And then, they went through the whole proceeding, but we're going to go through it. We've got the documents that were entered in on the record, including the statement of facts, which walks us to, with pictures, exactly what happened at the Capitol. And we'll see what else the release documents look like. We've got a clip from Thomas Massie, and then we'll learn really what the big question is Ray Epps going to even serve a day in jail? Is he going to go for a month or a day or 6 months or 18 years or something like his Oath Keeper friend, Stuart Rhodes, when they used to hang out together? He's going to prison for 18 years. Is he going to get 18 years at all? No, of course he's not. So the sentencing is going to come out. We'll see what that looks like. But first, how did this all unpack itself? Well, the government, they're the people who offer the plea deal. And so they are the individuals who sent this letter. And they sent it on September 6th, a couple weeks ago, coming out of Matthew Graves' office. We're very familiar with this guy. 11 pages, and it is a plea deal offer, right? This is the other one. James Ray Epps, case number 2023 R0PEND. Now that's curious. R0 penned. R0 penned. Huh, that's curious. Wondering if there's any taxonomy to this. R0, is this the first case? It's a pending case. So this is a plea deal. All right, huh. So anyways, they say, hey, Mr. Ray Epps, your lawyer, his name is Edward Ungarski, says, dear Mr. Ray Epps' lawyer. This is coming from the government prosecutors, the Department of Justice. It's 11 pages. We'll hit the highlights on it, but look who signed off on this one. Matthew Graves himself, the district attorney out of Washington, D.C. He's been really taking the lead on all the J6 prosecutions. So he got out of bed and they dragged him out here for this one. And we have not seen a lot of his signatures on other documents like the Proud Boys cases or the Oath Keepers cases, but he'll get up for Ray Epps. U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves, very familiar with him. So this is the letter that he sends over to Ray. He says, all right, to your lawyers, this letter is the full and complete plea offer for Ray Epps, your client. Here's the deal. Your client, despite being on the FBI's most wanted list, despite being on Capitol grounds, arguably inside the Capitol, that's my interpretation of his testimony with the House so-called Select Committee, despite having his hand on a sign that was being pushed violently into officers, despite being there the day before, screaming, into the Capitol, despite being there during the initial breach with Ryan Samsel, all these things, these attorneys from the DOJ, they just came out and said, here's what we want you to do. Plead guilty to one count, misdemeanor count, disorderly conduct, right? Like, it's like nonsense. This is the catch-all charge anywhere you look. It doesn't matter whether it's a federal case or even a local case. Okay, disorderly conduct is basically anything. Were you disorderly? Yeah. Was it disturbing the peace of others? Yeah. All right, there you go. Were you in a restricted building? Yeah. Okay, it's like nothing, right? Which is why his penalty, as we're going to see, is so minor. So they say your client understands that the maximum, okay, not what Ray Epps is going to get, but he has to know what he could get. 1 year in prison, $100,000 fine, supervised release no more than 1 year. That is the maximum cap, okay, just based under the charge. And he's definitely not going to get that. We'll see here in a minute why. So they say this is what you could get. You've got to be aware of this, just so you know. In addition, your client is going to pay a $25 fee. Oh my gosh, $25. And your client understands that he's got to make those payments. Your client also agrees, they're going to allow Ray Epps, government is going to have access to Ray Epps' social media accounts operated by your client for statements and postings in or around January 6th, prior to sentencing. So we're going to be able to see exactly what he's got and what he posted prior to sentencing. Factual stipulations, they say also your client agrees to everything in the statement of facts, which we'll read through. In consideration of this plea, your client will not be further prosecuted criminally by this office for conduct set forth in the statement of the offense. Okay, so now this is very curious because one issue that I have with this entire operation is that Ray Epps was a very interesting person that many people wanted to hear from during the two biggest trials in the January 6th proceedings that we talked about here. One was the Oath Keepers, the other was the Proud Boys. And the Proud Boys, we spent time when the defense was trying to subpoena Ray Epps to be here. They actually went to the judge, Your Honor, We need him to come and testify. We believe that he could exonerate our clients. And Ray Epps was roaming around the country. Nobody could find the guy. They tried to serve him. He was locking up his ranch out here in Queen Creek, Arizona, and nobody could get a hold of this guy. And so now, after the Oath Keepers, their trial has come and gone. They've all been sentenced. Stuart Rhodes is going to prison for 18 years. After the Proud Boys trials have come and gone, Enrique Tarrio got 22 years. We've got a big problem now because both of those cases are closed. And they didn't get the opportunity to have any conversations with Ray Epps at all because he was gone. Once they're closed, guess what? Boom, the information comes out. Ray Epps is conveniently now available to testify. Or, I'm sorry, he's available, but they don't need him to testify because the time for testimony is over in those other cases. And now we know that there are other trials that are still forthcoming. And the question is, on those other trials, will Ray Epps now be available? Because Ryan Samsel, for example, he does have a trial that has not been executed yet. And Ryan Samsel was the guy that Ray Epps was whispering to. We'll see here in the statement of facts in a minute. But Samsel, if his trial goes and he wants to subpoena Ray Epps, is Ray Epps going to come? Or is Ray Epps going to be fleeing around the country again, not available for testimony? And they asked the judge, please give us alternative service. Let us post this in a newspaper. Let us just post this at his residence. We know he's there or whatever. He knows that we want him. But the judge said, sorry, can't let you do that. You got to go physically serve him. So is Ray Epps going to go back on the run again? Because if Ray Epps is now brought back in to testify, how can he possibly invoke his Fifth Amendment right against testifying if he's immune? His plea deal says he's going to be immune. You're not going to be further criminally prosecuted for any of this conduct. So you'll be immune. So you should be able to talk, Ray. So you shouldn't be on the run anymore. So when Ryan Samsel sends you a subpoena, you better be available, buddy boy. After the entry of this plea, your client will not be charged with any nonviolent criminal offense in Federal District of Columbia. However, we reserve the right, if your client committed or commits such a crime of violence prior to the execution of this agreement. Obviously, he's not going to do that. So your client understands that the sentence in this case is going to be determined by the court. Here's what we're offering at a base level. We say the government agrees that we're going to grant you a 2-level reduction, all right? So we're giving you a better deal. If your client demonstrates acceptance of responsibility through his allocution, through the statement to the court, adherence to the provision of this agreement, and if your client doesn't do any of this, there are repercussions. We can withdraw and all the things. Now, Ray Epps has no criminal conviction, so they're not adding any criminal history points. They say, here is the estimated guidelines range. Now, with all of those modifications, they say, based upon the estimated offense level, your client, Ray Epps, his sentencing guidelines, okay, so remember at the start of this segment, we talked about what the maximum was, max 1 year imprisonment, but no, they gave him a 2-point reduction. So the sentencing guidelines range is now 0 months all the way up to 6 months, which means they're basically just going to give Ray probation. 0 months is what he's going to get, and I'll show you why, in my opinion. We'll see if it happens. In addition, the parties agree that pursuant to the rules, the fine range is $2,000 to $20,000, and your client reserves the right to ask the court to not impose any applicable fine. They say your client understands that none of this is binding. These are all just recommendations. The government and your client reserve the right to fully describe in writing the nature and the seriousness of your client's conduct. And we'll read that in the statement of facts. The court is not bound by this agreement or the sentencing guidelines. You know, this is just our plea. The court can reject the plea. Your client, Ray, acknowledges the government will not seek to change his release conditions. Okay, so they're not going to take him into custody. He's already free, so they're not going to change that. Venue, trial. You know, your client, Ray, if he takes this plea deal, he's going to waive his rights under the Constitution. If you agree to plead guilty, you can't also exercise your right to a jury trial. So he's given that up. Same thing with an appeal. You're agreeing to plead guilty. Nobody found you guilty, so there's nothing to appeal. Taking this plea, your client waives the right to appeal. Saying your client consents to appear by phone, the government will be free to use evidence against your client. And look, restitution. How much is Ray Epps going to have to pay? Well, we know that the damages was only $2.9 million, a small cry short of the billions that we saw during the Summer of Love. But nonetheless, Ray Epps has to pay $500. Oh man, that's a lot. Probably gonna have to lay off of his multi-million-dollar RV fill-up. It's like 1 tank of gas. If your client breaches this agreement, there will be consequences. This is the complete agreement. There is nothing outside of this document. If they are satisfactory, Ray's lawyer, send them to your client. If he agrees with this, and if he agrees with the second companion document, the statement of the offense, then sign them both and send it back over to us. And this is what they say, right? So the attorney would say, yes, I agree, Edward, and Ray Epps would say, yes, I agree, here. And so that was the original filing. Now, obviously, they did accept it because they took the plea today. But this is the statement of the offense. Now, this is the conduct that they're alleging Ray Epps was involved in, and we've got photographs in this. Look at this. this. They're walking us through it, including the whisper. So let's see what they say. They say, pursuant to the rules, back in January 2021, we know that the Capitol was being secured. They say the exterior was closed. There was a joint session in Congress. Pence was presiding over the Senate. The crowd was not lawfully authorized to enter the building. Certifications were underway, and it cost $2.8 million in repair. Same litany we've heard before. Now, how is Ray Epps involved? In the evening of January 5th, they say, Ray Epps, who just got charged with 1 count of disorderly conduct, even though he's also a former Oath Keeper. Many of the Oath Keepers got charged with seditious conspiracy. They're rotting away in prison now for a long time. And Ray Epps, none of that happened to him, of course. But they say in the evening of J5, Epps stood on Black Lives Matter Plaza. Isn't that ironic? So $2.9 million for the J6 Capitol. BLM riots in the summer of love in 2020 was over $1 billion by many estimates. They gave them a whole plaza, which is just incredible. Meanwhile, the J6ers are being arrested, and Ray Epps was in BLM Plaza on January 6th, and he didn't get arrested either. He just got charged with an information. Anyways, with the crowd, what appears to be an impromptu rally, in response to people proclaiming their anger and a desire to fight Antifa and BLM, Ray Epps said, "Tonight you can bring shame on us. That's not what it's about." Okay, so they're saying Ray Epps was saying, don't fight Antifa. Don't fight. Another person challenged Epps. Oh, is this going to be a puff piece for Ray Epps? Oh, gosh. Another person challenged Epps. They said the American Revolution was sparked on taxes on tea. And Epps said, "We're far beyond that. In fact, tomorrow," I don't even like to say it. Here we go. "I don't even like to say it," he says, "because I'll be arrested." No, you don't have to worry about that. You didn't get arrested. You're good, man. Say whatever you want. Adam Kinzinger and the entire media love you. He said this, "We need to go into the Capitol," capitalized. "We're here to defend the Constitution." I'm going to put this out there. "I'm probably going to jail for it." No, you didn't. "Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol." Into the Capitol. Peacefully. Epps' speech was recorded, broadcasted all over the place. We played it multiple times. Here's the clip. This guy, "Into the Capitol." Screenshot from his video. Now, the next day, Epps was there wearing a beige shirt and a desert camouflage pattern long sleeve brown backpack. He had a red Trump baseball cap on. He attended the Stop the Steal rally. There, Epps was recorded telling one group of rally goers, "As soon as the president is done speaking," Ray says, "we go to the Capitol. The Capitol is this way. As soon as President Trump is finished speaking," says Ray, "we are going to the Capitol. It's that direction. That's where our problems lie." Before Trump's speech concluded, Epps, among many others, left. At 12:52, Epps and the vanguard of the rioters reached the Peace Circle, where they encountered bicycle racks and mesh fencing, both bearing area closed signs. Now, these bicycle rack barricades and the mesh fence were guarded by a small group of Capitol Police and Metro Police. You see, this is the area here. The stymied crowd grew increasingly agitated and confrontational with a small group of police officers. One member of the crowd, wearing a black t-shirt over a white long-sleeve hoodie and a red Make America Great Again hat, Ryan Samsel, this guy, later identified as him, started shaking the security barrier, and he turned the baseball hat around backward while yelling at the police. And guess what? Epps approached Samsel and spoke in his ear. Now, they say in a separate consensual FBI interviews, both Epps and Samsel stated that Epps said something to the effect of, "Dude, relax. The cops are doing their job." So Epps here was saying, "Dude, relax. The cops are doing their job. Relax." Even though he was saying, into the Capitol, like that day before, and he's marching people to do that. They get right up to the moment, and then suddenly he turns around and he says, "Relax. The cops are doing their job." Now, if you want to look this up, Ryan Samsel has actually changed his story. All right. Now, they're failing to mention that, but Ryan Samsel has said a couple different things. So I'm not real sure that Ryan Samsel is all that credible, to be perfectly clear with you. But the point is, they're not telling you the other side of this, okay? Ryan Samsel has said that something else was said, but they didn't mention that. So here is the whisper. Seconds later, at 12:57, Samsel and others surged forward, destroying barricades and overwhelming the police officers, and Ray Epps was standing right there. A flood of rioters, including Epps. Wow. He stormed through the downed barricades, and Ray Epps breached the first line of defense for the Capitol grounds, and he entered the restricted area. There he is right there, running in with the crowd. I'm sure they knew this a long time ago. I mean, he was one of the first people on the FBI's most wanted list as a violent offender. So why did all of the other J6ers get charged a long time ago, but now they're just getting to Ray Epps? Very convenient, isn't it? Maybe it's because all of the other major cases are now done. So a short way down the path, the group of rioters, including Epps, encountered a second set of barriers. Well, why didn't he leave? Here's Ray Epps right there. He certainly could have turned around, right? Kinzinger said that according to Kinzinger and Cheney, okay, every other person in this picture is an insurrectionist, anti-democratic murderer of Capitol Police. Every single person in this shaded area, right? right? Except this guy. Now, it's always weird how that happens. I don't know how that happens, but that's just what they say. So Ray Epps is there, and they say other rioters topple those barricades too. They and Epps continue to penetrate the restricted Capitol grounds. Epps and a large group of other rioters then made their way to the West Plaza, a restricted area on the Capitol grounds just outside of the Capitol building. Just outside of the building. Lines of uniformed Capitol Police and Metro Police officers, many of whom were wearing riot gear, mostly succeeded in physically blocking the rioters, including Epps, from further advancing on the west side of the Capitol. And here you see, this is a screenshot showing the police line, and don't know if Ray Epps is in the crowd, but presumably he is. Meanwhile, an unrelated group of rioters wheeled an all-metal Trump sign, which was measured 8 feet tall by 10 feet wide, from the ellipse to the south end of the West Plaza. Once the group arrived with the metal Trump sign, the rioters gathered at the West Plaza, lifted it up overhead, passed it northward as if the sign was being crowd surfed. And we've seen this before, right? Here is what the sign looks like. Trump 2020. It's a big sign. And Ray Epps has his hand on it. When the sign reached the middle of the West Plaza where Epps was standing, rioters worked together to turn the sign approximately 90 degrees and began pushing it towards the line of officers standing between the rioters on the West Plaza and the Capitol building itself. Epps briefly placed both of his hands on the sign's fabric or frame. That's assault on an officer, my friend. Pushing that towards the police line. There's Ray Epps right here. Look at his hand right here, right there. Boom. Here's the other one touching this sign right here. Shoving the sign into the cops, insurrecting all of our country. At 1:40 p.m., other rioters successfully pushed the sign into a group of police officers, violently attacking them. The sign's size and impact broke this and scattered the police line, right? So Ray Epps was there, a part of this operation. He's literally right there, shattering not only the first breach, but the second breach as well. This is the government's own motion, okay? This is what they're writing. And do you know why they're writing this? It's because they're immunizing him for all of this. They are immunizing him via the plea deal. They want to include everything. In case somebody asks questions about it, Ray Epps wants to be completely covered by the plea deal. They didn't charge him for this. They didn't charge him with assaulting an officer or anything. Disorderly conduct. Okay, we have Proud Boys who are going to prison for over a decade for conduct less than this, in my opinion. The officers managed to wrest the sign away from the rioters and move it out of their reach. One Capitol Police officer who was a part of that police line described the sign's frame as so heavy that it took 15 officers to carry the sign away from the rioters. Now, while the officers were occupied with the sign, a group of rioters, including Epps, pushed forward, leaning their bodies on each other. Epps doing what he said he was going to do. Into the Capitol! Into the Capitol! Police officers responded by deploying chemical spray on the rioters in the front of the scrum. The rioters, including Epps, immediately fell back and dispersed after he got popped with chems. Epps remained on restricted Capitol grounds for a little over a half an hour longer. Video evidence shows that during his time on the Capitol grounds, indeed, both before and after his participation in a sign push above, Epps made at least, here's what they say, 5 attempts to de-escalate conflicts between other rioters and police officers and prevent rioters on the West Plaza from attacking police along their defensive line. That's what they say, even though he just breached 2 lines. Okay. Epps received a text message from his family member telling Epps to, quote, be safe. Epps responded by text. Here's what Epps said. I was in the front with a few others. I also orchestrated it. Okay. If you're a Proud Boy, or if you're not Ray Epps, that would make you a part of a conspiracy, wouldn't it? And Ray Epps, as we know, was a former Oath Keeper, literally. I have the video of him walking hand in hand with Stewart Rhodes. So if he's former Oath Keeper, he's also on restricted grounds, he's also attacking police officers, he's also admitting in text messages that he openly orchestrated it. Is disorderly conduct just enough? As set forth above, although Epps did not enter the Capitol building, and that's what, I still have doubts about that. Epps knowingly entered restricted Capitol grounds, and while there, acted in a disruptive and disorderly way to interfere with the official functions of the Capitol Police. And I always have doubts about this, okay? As set forth above, although Epps did not enter the Capitol building, he knowingly entered restricted Capitol grounds. And just to be clear on this, so let me just pause on this and pull this up. And it's Ray Epps' deposition, and it is, let me see if I can just get the PDF, because of course it's not pulling up right now. And the Ray Epps deposition, if you actually read it in its entirety, let me see if I have it over here, or I'll pull it up. If I can't grab it in 2 seconds, then we'll pull it up later. But all right, so we'll go back, we'll pull it up later, but the actual deposition, it's so poorly conducted that you can't tell. And they asked him such bad questions that you just really can't tell what's happening. Anyways, shortly after leaving the Capitol grounds, Epps gave an interview to an unknown individual, which was recorded. Epps assented to the interviewer's statement. So here's what somebody else said about Epps. So you're saying you were marching down there, and it's one more thing that we as patriots can do to show those elected officials, look, we didn't just come out here to jump around and yell and scream. We came here to be visible, and we came here to make a point, and that's right where you are, right? That's exactly what you're saying. You want these guys to know, right? On January 6th, the FBI posted online a number of photographs of persons of interest who were involved in violence at the Capitol, made mention of many times here. Photograph number 16 depicted Epps speaking to Samsel just before Samsel breached the crowd. This is the tweet. Photograph number 16, Ray Epps, violence at the Capitol. 2 days later, on January 8th, Epps called the FBI tip line, and this is why they're saying he got a good deal. He identified himself as the person. In that same call, he gave a lengthy consensual interview about his activities. He said that he admitted, right? So he's saying, I admitted I stopped the steal. He admitted to observing other rioters tear down barricades and confront police. So he just spills his guts. Then his attorney, on March 3rd, 2021, they did a follow-up interview. During that interview, Epps identified himself in a bunch of photos. He then stated words, when word started to spread that rally goers were going to the Capitol, he decided to help spread the message and that he wanted to be in the front of the pack. During his interview, he understood that he was trespassing, and while he intended to enter the Capitol, he did not intend to break in. His goal was to walk into the front door and let them, the lawmakers, know what Trump supporters think. Guess what? That's what many other J6ers thought. And there are videos of them tapping on an officer's shoulder and letting people come through the door. So they walk us through the elements of this so-called offense. Ray Epps knowingly and voluntarily admits all the elements of disorderly conduct. They say Ray Epps admits that he knowingly and with the intent to impede and disrupt the orderly function of government entered restricted buildings and grounds, knowing the vice president would be there. All of this respectfully submitted by Matthew M. Graves. Signed off on by the attorney Michael M. Gordon. And so this is the deal. Ray Epps will be immunized for all of this conduct, right? And he's not going to be charged for anything. That's why they filled this up to the brim, just to make sure it's all encompassing. And that is what happened in court. Now, there were a couple items of release conditions, very minor things here. We'll just show you. They say that Ray Epps, it is ordered that he must not violate the law. He must cooperate with the DNA sample. They say the defendant here must advise the court if he's changing his residence. He needs to appear at another date and time. They say Ray Epps, he's got a couple things. Submit to supervision and a supervision report by the probation people. Surrender his passport is something he's got to do currently. Not obtain a passport and not follow the restrictions on personal travel. We can't see what those are. No firearms for Ray Epps. Not possess a firearm as part of his release conditions. And stay away from the District of Columbia unless for court or pretrial business or to meet with counsel. Can't go back to DC. So all of this was waived and signed off on. The defendant has been ordered released. This was all signed off on by the Judge Boasberg. And if there's violations, there will be repercussions for that. He has been released on his personal recognizance. So not in custody, not having to post a bond, nothing like that at all. And all of this was done via Zoom on September 20th, signed in on by the judge. And so that is Ray Epps. Pretty simple plea deal. And we know that there are some serious questions about this. Merrick Garland was in front of Congress, and we've heard this clip from Thomas Massie talking about this real big problem that we've got with this entire investigation. How many federal agents were in the crowd? Why don't we know the number? Why are there double standards in justice? Why does Adam Kinzinger say that Ray Epps is a hero, but all the other people are insurrectionists? Ray Epps gets no jail. I'm going to guess he gets probation. The reason I think he gets probation while we're here is because the next sentencing proceeding is going to happen on December 20th at 10 a.m. But they've also waived their appearance in person at that hearing, which means the judge is just going to say, you get probation, right? If he was sentencing him to jail or something like that, or to a term of prison, he would be taking him into custody at that time. The fact that they're waiving this means he's not going into custody. So the question is, why these double standards? Maybe Ray Epps was not a Fed. Maybe he was not a federal agent on their payrolls or as a bona fide CHS, but he was somebody who committed a ton of conduct that was similar to or worse than many other J6 defendants. And he was involved with the Oath Keepers. He was there telling people to go into the Capitol. He was part of a violent onslaught, according to the FBI agents who identified him at the first place, but he still gets a better deal than other people. And the question is why? We want to know. Thomas Massie wants to know too.
You're citing the Constitution. I'm going to cite it. It's our Constitution constitutional duty to do oversight. Now, in that video, that was your answer to a question to me 2 years ago when I said how many agents or assets of the government were present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol and how many went into the Capitol. Can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, last time, you don't know how many there were or there were none?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions. If there were any, I don't know how many. I don't know whether there are any.
I think you may have just perjured yourself that you don't know that there were any. You want to say that again, that you don't know that there were any?
I have no personal knowledge of this matter. I think what I said the last time.
You've had 2 years to find out, and the day, by the way, that was in reference to Ray Epps, and yesterday you indicted him. Isn't that a wonderful coincidence? On a misdemeanor. Meanwhile, you're sending grandmas to prison. You're putting people away for 20 years for merely filming. Some people weren't even there yet. You got the guy on video who's saying go into the Capitol. He's directing people to the Capitol before the speech ends. He's at the site of the first breach. You've got all the goods on him, 10 videos, and it's an indictment for a misdemeanor? The American public isn't buying it. I yield the balance of my time to Chairman Jordan.
May I answer the question?
So that is Merrick Garland, and he, of course, is not going to give us any answers to any of that. So Ray Epps goes and completes a plea deal. No jail time coming for that. We'll see what the sentencing looks like. If there is any jail time, that's when we'll see it on 12/20. I hope you join us and subscribe as we get to that one, my friends. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for checking out robertgovea.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.